Assalamu alaikum, welcome to Game Changer. I'm Mariam Zia. Tonight we'll delve deep into the political landscape of India with focus on Narendra Modi's politics and upcoming elections in India. When we look at the Modi's tenure, of course, we know that India has transformed into a country where, of course, freedom of expression as well as the rule of law is no longer guaranteed. And when we look at the policies, they not only have repercussions for the country, but also broader implications for South Asian region. In today's program, we will be exploring different dimensions of Modi's policies. Of course, when we talk about Hindutva ideology, how it has transformed India from a democratic country to an extremist nation, we will be exploring its implications and impacts on the social fabric of India as well as India's foreign policies and India's global standing. To discuss this and more, we are joined in the studios by Dr. Tughrul Jamin, who is expert strategic affairs. Welcome to the program. We're also joined by Dr. Zafar Nawaz Jaspal, who is expert international affairs. Welcome to the program. And we are joined online by Brigadier retired Ghaznafar Ali, who is senior analyst. Welcome to the program. Dr. Tughrul, let me start with you. Of course, when we look at the upcoming elections in India, and of course, Prime Minister Modi is eyeing another tenure within India. How do you see BJP's policies impacting democracy within India?
BJP's policies have served Modi very well, and unfortunately he will get another term, and he is going to equal Nehru's record of getting more than 10 years in office. Whatever Modi is doing does not interfere with his economic policies. He has made India into an economic powerhouse, and although he's been very brutal with his Muslim population, but Muslims are in minority, and their voice really in his scheme of things does not matter. He has already usurped Kashmir, occupied Kashmir, and made it truncated into 3 union territories, made it part of India, which has been his aim. He has been demolishing mosques. He is building a grand temple on the site of the erstwhile Babri Masjid. But all these things really do not matter. The world doesn't care, and Hindus, after all, are in a majority. They are the biggest, the most populous nation in the world now. They have surpassed China. There are over 1 billion people, and Muslims.
And 600 million electorate.
Right, absolutely. And it is such a diverse country. There are Christians, there are Buddhists, there are Sikhs, there are Muslims. So whatever he does with Muslims or non-Hindus really doesn't carry weight, because he is considered as a world-class leader now. He is accepted in White House, he is accepted anywhere he goes with open arms. And recently you have seen the case of Qatar, where they have released 8 Indian naval officers who were accused of spying for Israel, and they had been sentenced to death. And now, because Modi has struck a trade deal with Qatar worth billions of dollars, and he's been on a very aggressive he's led a very aggressive diplomatic campaign to get them released. So he had them released. So if you compare Modi with other people in South Asia, people pay attention to him. So he'll get another term in office. And
right, of course. And when we look at all these facts, and given the recent state assembly elections and BJP's firm position in those elections, how do you and what do you make of Prime Minister Modi's policies, both domestically as well as, of course, internationally and foreign policy, and how, of course, India is placing itself in the global arena?
I think that Prime Minister Modi has a very successful domestic and foreign policy, but with that successes, there are many repercussions of his policies, and they are not only for Indian domestic politics, but also for the region as well as for the international politics. If we can divide this into internal and external, internally, Prime Minister Modi is projecting, promoting Hindutva. His victory, everything is linked with it. BJP started from 1982 using this centuries of exploitation slogan, a slogan of nativism, and in such a slogan you always identify enemies. So for a democratic society, for a political stable system, these kind of the narratives are not advisable, they are lethal. Maybe today they are giving the benefits to the propagators of this narrative, centuries of the Muslim rule, humiliation of the Hindus, but tomorrow they will be creating a new militant class within the state. All the minorities in the last 1 decade, they are on the receiving end, especially the Muslims are suffering a lot. He promoted the Hindu culture and he has transformed Indian polity, which was based on constitution or constitutional polity, into a one-party religio polity. And in that context, it's a violation of their constitution as well. And that's why you find that the state terrorism has been, there is a need of use of the state terrorism in Kashmir and in other Manipur or in other parts of the country. So country is not as stable as we viewed it.
Right, right. Let me take this point to Brigadier Sahib. Brigadier Sahib, how do you view this polarization within Indian society, as Time magazine also called Narendra Modi in 2019 article as divider in chief? So how do you see these of course policies and polarization impacting the social fabric of India?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I think the social fabric of India is very critically divided, and very rightly said by the Dr. Shah and the other speakers, that in turn, externally, India can say that they are planning to become the third largest economy of the world. But what's happening inside India, it does not corroborate with their outside power. They are building up into a regional state, or trying to build up into a regional state. And as recently said by their vice president of the BJP, Baijan Pandya, he did not concentrate on the internal issue. He only said that India, in the coming days, Narendra Modi will concentrate on the economic emancipation of India. And that is apparent when he has said very apparently that he signed a deal with Qatar. But there are other things which also have been said by India, and I would like to quote a very detailed study which has been undertaken by a Hindu scholar, that is Ashok Vaishnav. He is Director Center for Contemporary South Asia in Brown University. And if you read his article, he has pointed out a very, very, very dangerous trend in India. And he said very soon India is going to be under Jim Crow laws. And you know what Jim Crow laws are. They are implemented in South American states in 19th and 20th century. And what was done through those laws was that the black was disfranchised and on the race basis. So he says this is becoming a reality in India, that very soon the Muslims will be granted secondary citizenship, and along with the Muslims, all the minorities will be granted the secondary citizenship to establish the Hindu supremacy. And even he says that very soon you will see that in India, the minorities' right to vote will be removed. Now you see this thing with the polarity in India, where 200 Muslims are present, and Narendra Modi going to a very lowest level and using such thing. I was seeing one is Rajasthan rally, where he appears to, you see, he's not a statesman. He's a very low-class leader. He's taking India into an economic emancipation, but as far as his mental thinking is concerned, he quoted an incident there that a Muslim tailor was murdered in India, in Rajasthan, during the Congress rule. So he said, look, the Congress rule, Muslim tailor was murdered, and Muslims, the Muslims were appeased. The Hindu tailor was murdered by the Muslim, so Muslims were favored by the Congress party. Now you see, if this thinking exists,
right,
and along with the Hindutva, along with the Ram Mandir, and there are other things going on in India which are very apparent. And those things that you see, Hindu-Muslim divide which has been exploited, but then there is a consolidation of power attitude which is going. They are muzzling the critical media. You have seen the state of the media. Then independence of judiciary. The two distance with distance.
Right,
and the,
right. Of course, we
so-
will be talking about legislation and independence of judiciary as well. But Dr. Ramin, I want to you to tell us about and elaborate on how Narendra Modi is, of course, changing the history of India and of course eliminating the Muslims from the textbook, how this is going to be impacting the social fabric and of course the divide within India and of course the bigotry, the hatred towards Muslims.
It's going to suppress the Muslims are going to be upset about it, but for how long? They have to live in that country. India is a very big country and Muslims are isolated, they are in pockets. You might find them in Old Delhi or you might find them in Hyderabad, Deccan. I think they have already divided Hyderabad, Deccan. So you don't find them or you will find them in occupied Kashmir. So Muslims are in pockets, they don't have a united voice as such.
Right, but Dr. Ramin, at the same time it's a large population. After
is.
Indonesia, it is the biggest Muslim population
Right.
residing within a
Right.
country.
Right.
So do you think that it is right to call it that they are divided in pockets and they don't have a voice as such?
They don't have a voice, unfortunately. They don't have a voice. They don't have a united voice. You don't find any single person who can be called the leaders of the Muslim in India. And another thing I can tell you this, that the Muslims themselves are divided on issues. They will not talk about Kashmir. The Kashmiris themselves will talk about liberation or independent status or things like that, but the rest of the Muslim population is not much engaged with what is happening in Kashmir itself. So they don't have a united voice. They will have their own issues. They will struggle for perhaps more seats in the universities or more seats in the in the civil services, things like that. But they are not united. They don't have a single voice.
What do you see a reason behind this? Of course, not having a voice for them. Do you think that this is because of the suppression of dissent within India? Like any criticism of the Modi's policies are branded as anti-nationalist policies or anti-nationalist voices, and they are suppressed even within media. So do you think that is one of the reasons?
That's one of the reasons, but one of the biggest reasons is the creation of Pakistan. Most of the Muslim elite left for Pakistan, so they were left leaderless. The only person who was there, or a number of them were there, was perhaps Maulana Abul Kalam Azad. He is long dead. So these were people who were in the Congress party. But now in BJP is the biggest party. I'm sure they must be having Muslim representation there. I'm sure they must be giving tickets to Muslims also. But there's no one single leader who can be called a leader of stature, who can really represent Muslims or who can pick up Muslim issues in the lower house or in the higher house. We don't have. Currently they have a Dalit as president. Earlier, long ago, they had Muslim presidents also. The last one was the famous scientist Abdul Kalam. After that, there's been no Muslim, and earlier on they had Dr. Zakir Hussain. So Muslims do not have that kind of stature. Muslim leaders don't have that kind of stature that they can really represent Muslims in India. So this extended rule of Modi is only going to spoil relations with Pakistan. He has already suppressed the Muslims. Muslims will be further suppressed. They will be very upset. They will be very angry. But more than that, they will be frightened. They are frightened of what they can do or what they cannot do, because enraged mobs can lynch them if they slaughter a cow, and they can force them to chant Hindu religious slogans. Then their mosques are being demolished. And so many suppressive actions. The girls are not being allowed to take hijab in schools because according to their vision, this is dividing their society. It is like in many European countries, they don't let Muslim girls wear hijab because they think that they don't want any religious identity of immigrants. So he's going to do that, and the world is going to look silently at it, and nobody is going to do anything
and
about
Dr. Rispal, in your opinion, what are the consequences of course, legislative actions for suppression of Muslims, like Citizen Amendment Act? What role they are going to be playing in, of course, impacting these communal relations within India?
I think that they adopted the constitutional method to kill the minority's voice. With this amendment in the Citizen Act, they deliberately tried to reduce the number of the Muslims and create a problem for them. Many of them become a stateless people. But they are failing to realize that when you target a community, whether it's big or small, the community retaliates. And retaliation, so far Muslims' retaliation in India is more constitutional, demonstration, political rights, the way the minorities do. But at the same time, if they are pushing them, you are pushing them towards the Muslims towards the militancy. I was seeing an interview in which a small child of a Muslim, somebody asked him that how you are feeling, what is going to happen because they burned his. He said that this is their time, tomorrow may be our time. So this kind of the things you are feeding in their minds, like in their, and this kind of a thing will not bring a stability in India. Our concern is, one, of course, Muslims, and second is that instability in a bigger neighborhood will be going to have a spillover impact on Pakistan. And that's why, in order to catch the Hindutva or ultra-nationalists to justify his policies, to muster the support of the religious or far-right groups, he always used Pakistan as a scapegoat.
Right, and that's what I want to you to tell us about, that what are the potential repercussions of these strategic moves by Modi on its ties with all its neighbors, not only Pakistan but other neighbors as well, because in the recent past we have seen such examples that India doing such policies not only in its immediate neighborhood but also beyond borders.
I think that we have to analyze this, that within the, if you see, Pakistan is the only state within the regional context which challenged India's hegemonic design. The remaining all the smaller neighbors of India accepted the India's role within the region, or what we call it Indra's doctrine. But at the same time, now we are seeing that Nepal and the other countries, they are deviating from that. They are asking the Indians, even a small islander state is saying that no, you can move your people back. So this trend is witnessed, we have seen in the Indian neighborhood because of the Modi government's extremist policies. Not only Pakistan but the other neighbors of the India are also protesting. And I understand that the way you have driven, look, when you have an extremist element, when they start, you can say, killing their own people, and international community ignore it, and the international community ignore what is happening in India for the sake of economic and other, they strengthen the haughtiness of the Indian leadership, and that's why we have seen India targeted the Sikh leadership in, you can say, Canada, and as a result, Canadian Prime Minister protested. But at the same time, Canada is a member of the NATO, but the Western nations or the Americans try to ignore it, or you can say not give this issue more importance, and as a result Indians attacked on in the New York, so American national. So this is a wrong attitude. So India's image in a civilized world is tarnished, that what they are doing, they are killing the people out of the country. They have a state terrorism and they are sponsoring it. And then Qatar, they have, you can say, arrested 8 naval officers and then sentenced them. Of course, Pakistan, one can understand. People may be not buying. They say, okay, Pakistanis, when we arrested in 2006 this Yadev, that they said, okay, they are enemy, they are doing, they are involved in it. But what is this happening in the Canada? What is happening in the United States, and what is happening in Qatar? So that has exposed India, and that's why President Biden was unable to attend or participate in their Democratic Day on 26th January. So I think that sooner India will start facing the repercussions of these policies which Prime Minister Modi has adopted within India and out of the India.
Right, and Brigadier Sir, when we look at Modi's policies, of course, starting from 2019 as well, if we talk about the recent past, of course, revocation of the special status of Jammu and Kashmir. How do you think that Modi's re-election is going to be impacting the region, specifically in regards to the Kashmir issue?
I mean, there are a number of things which are related to India. And first, the biggest thing is the Indian economy which people see and the business opportunities. And the business opportunities and Indian economy and its dividend have come into forefront by India moving up into the economic ladder. But the mere economy of the world is not sufficient to establish you as a world power because India's ambitions are not regional. India's ambitions, as you see from the BJP and the RSS leadership, and from the, even there, if you read the statement of their foreign minister, they want to compete with China and America, and they want to come partner with them, and they want to be part of the European Union even. Now, seeing all these things, economies will go on. But whatever is being done externally also, which has already been pointed out, what has been done in Canada, what hasn't been done in America, even the effects of Indian policy which are going into Assam and the effect of Indian policy which are going into Nepal. And there is a nationalism in India going on, where there are 33 states which want to depart from India and they want to go for their independence. So these internal issues do not point India as to a, I would say, as to a regional or as to an international civilized nation. Now the Israelis are undertaking the atrocities against the Palestinians, though they are taking on the behest of the Americans and Joe Biden is standing with them. But do you think the Israelis being looked at a civilized state and people want to work with Israel? There have been ostentation in the European capital. There you see the attitude of the Spain. You see what happened in Ireland. You see what's happening even the day before Saudi Arabia. There was a statement for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia that we do not want to establish a relation until unless you establish the Palestinian state. So these internal issues, which is the part of the Hindutva and Indian ideology, and even it's not the marginalization of Muslims only, even in the Hindu community, there's a very part of the Dalit Hindus who are being marginalized also. So I personally feel that whatever India may do in the coming thing, the right of the self-determination movement is not going to die down. Though India is not going to bunch from their claim on to Kashmir, the India's audacity for Kashmir only enhances because Pakistan is a weak state. We do not have democratic elected government. We have a caretaker government. Before that, we had a PDM government. And our authenticity at the world level, our voice at the world level, or our voice at Kashmir is not understood in the way as it would be done if there's a democratic elected government which is representative of the people of Pakistan. So by seeing all these things, I can very safely say that whatever efforts are India's going to make, or whatever they are trying to do, the things will not as smooth going for the Indians as we think. So they are going to have problems, and these problems are going to enhance. And if Pakistan takes up the status of the Kashmir to the world community and takes it to the world issues as Pakistan had been doing in the past through a very coherent and through a very strong committed leadership, then the things can change very radically. But yes, we can say
of course, things can change very radically when we talk about specifically about the Kashmir issue. I would be coming towards the domestic politics in India, but let's talk about, of course, India's role as a fascist regime and its position. How do you anticipate its position in the broader South Asian region, and how the democracies of the world are looking at India? Like, of course, Dr. Jaspal also alluded to the impacts and its relations, and ultimately world is going to be witnessing that how India is, of course, damaging its social fabric and its ties with. But how do you view that right now the world is witnessing this fascist regime?
Mariam, the world is not a fair place. Whatever is happening in Gaza, that is a stigma on humanity. The way the Israelis are killing poor Palestinians who are at the moment under attack in Rafah, a small town, border town in the south of Gaza, Gaza Strip. So nobody is saying anything about it. Can anything be worse than that? You are killing children, there was a young girl, Hind Rajab, who was 6 years old, and she was desperately crying for help, and ultimately she was found dead. So world is an unfair place, and world is not really enamored by the Muslims. We are aware of what happened in Bosnia when the Dutch peacekeepers very conveniently turned a blind eye to the Serbs killing Muslim young men and raping Muslim women. Nobody said anything. So what I'm trying to say is, world couldn't care less about what happens to Indian Muslims. If Indian Muslims want to improve their own status, they need to present a united front. And another problem is, over the years, Indian Muslims have been looking up to Pakistan, but Pakistan has its own problems. Pakistan can also not speak on their behalf, and ultimately they have realized that they have to do something for themselves. So no, I don't think Modi's policies, there are not going to be any riots, there are not going to be any political upheavals. The Muslims will remain a passive, suppressed, very large minority. Maybe, as you said, they perhaps come after Indonesia, although many people say that that number is exaggerated, that the number of Muslim growth does not surpass that of Pakistan, but yet it is a very big majority which lives in India. But no, I don't think this is going to cause any fissures within India. I don't think South Asian nations would raise any voice in support of Muslims. Only country that is doing is Pakistan. Pakistan has been saying that the mosques should not be raised, that the Muslims should be given their due status, that Kashmir needs to be given the choice to vote for themselves, whether they want to be part of India or whether they want to be part of Pakistan. But no, nobody else is bothered. You are bothered, I am bothered, Jaspal Saab is bothered, Brigadier Ghazanfar is bothered, but nobody else is bothered. We'll talk in this talk show and nobody cares.
But Dr. Jameen, we talk about Muslims issues, but Dr. Jaspal, at the same time, when we look at Modi's policies, of course, we are witnessing another farmers' protest taking place within India. How do you see Modi's policies in regards to more developed southern states and the poorer north states still protesting? And of course, we witnessed during Modi's tenure one of the largest protests in history, where Modi had to retract laws as well. So how do you see Modi's domestic economic policies as well? Because as we are brandishing India as biggest economy of the world, and the world cannot say anything to India since they have economic opportunities, but what about these questionable economic policies?
It's a very important point that India's economy has been growing, or status is around 7%. But at the same time, the common man in India is not satisfied. India is facing corruption. India is encountering the unemployment. Indians are very much disturbed, and especially these farmers. Modi policies are more supportive to the big business, industrial class, and that's why if you see BJP get more funds from those people and media support from that parties or that kind of groups, which are industrious groups. But the common man in India has been suffering, and that's why you were rightly identified the protest of the farmers, which we have been witnessing in the last, and there was a big protest, and again it is there. But the question is that Modi has an advantage that he has a consolidated vote, which is 1/3, not a 2/3. But the system, in majoritarian system, this consolidated vote makes him or gives him seats which are nearly 2/3 in the parliament. So if you read the Indian, so it means that around 75% or 63% in between Indians are dissatisfied with the policies of the Prime Minister Modi because of these things. If we can say India's economy has been growing and there is a big business is there, then why not there is a trickle-down effect, and why there are these kind of the protests by the farmers and by the other communities.
And there is deepening crisis within Indian agriculture as well.
Yeah, Indian agriculture, and agriculture is very much sustaining, and they have to feed 1 billion. So I think that Modi's policies have brought an economic opportunities for the business classes, but these natives of the India or the farmers of India, they are suffering, and it's not a new. In India, we have seen that the farmers committed suicides as well, and now they are once again heading towards a similar kind of thing. The farmers' crisis in India means that over 1 billion people, food insecurity, and that over 1 billion people food insecurity will be going to cause an insecurity in the region as well as internationally.
Right, of course. Brigadier Sahab, when we talk about Freedom House Index, it designates India only as partly free. How do you see these tactics by Modi's regime, and do you think that these policies are going to be continuing in coming years, or we will be witnessing some international pressure or some sane voices within India keeping hold of the situation, or this divide is going to be deepening?
Actually, your question is in two parts. One is the international pressure and what is the internal pressure. International pressure, Dr. Saab has said very categorically, and I agree with it, that internationally people are not concerned what's happening in India internally. Because internationally, India is aligned with major power. You see, if the Germans have today, German government has said that everybody has to take a oath that they will align with Israel. So what is the West thinking about the atrocities going on Gaza? They are against Muslim. Basically, it is again that clash of civilization which Hindutva said, and that thing you can witness in the current world which is going on absolutely like that way. India happens to be a Hindu state, and I would further on go to say that there's a nexus at the international level. There's a nexus. Firstly, there was a nexus of neocons and the Zionism, and Zionism is one thing which based its policy on the terrorism and fascism of the Jews against the Muslims. That the neocons say the same thing. Now there are three parties in coalition. One is the neocons, the other is Zionism, and third is the Hindutva. And you see how the Israel army has trained in the Indians in the Kashmir to undertake the terrorist policy against the Kashmiri Mujahideen who were fighting for the right of self-determination. There is an Israeli element, there is an Israeli organization which is in the IDF, in Mossad, which is known as Matsada. And Matsada is one organization which trains their soldiers, and they have trained the Indian army on taking the inhuman type of the executions against the freedom fighters, against such type of people. So this is a nexus which is existing. In this nexus, there is going to be no international pressure on India. Internally, what is Modi is doing, he is facing a pressure. And you see recently what has happened. India, he's announced a rally which is known as the Viksat Bharat Samakap rally, and that rally, that Yatra, and that Yatra said that all the government officers will be deployed in the towns and the villages, and they will highlight the glaring steps being taken by the Modi's government during the last 2 years. Then on top of that, the Ministry of Defense has set number of selfie points at all the stadiums, at all the museums, where they will start the picture of Narendra Modi, and they are asking people to take their photograph along that cutout. So all these things, and the repression of the judiciary, what happened with the media, what is happening with common people. So these are things which is internal.
But Brigadier Sahab, do you think that in the light of this upward trend in and increase in Hindutva terrorism, do you think that Mr. Modi is going to be addressing these concerns, these security concerns by the religious minorities?
No, Modi is not concerned with this. He is known as the butcher of Gujarat in whole of the world. Ehsan Jafri, who fought election against him, his dead body was hanged in front of his house, cut into pieces. So he is not concerned. He is a butcher. He is a very terrorist mentality. He is the most fascist person you have ever seen. So why should he be bothered against it? And he is a very hypocritic face. Last time in the election, if you saw his picture, he went to the house of the Muslims, sat there and asked them to, wash he was washing the feet of the Muslims. But what happened after that? What is happening now? How the discrimination is being done? What happened with the Sikhs on the streets of the Delhi and Bombay? How they were marginalized? What happened in the Delhi University? How was a pregnant woman, a Muslim woman was targeted. So all these things Muslim Modi has to face. He is the most fascist type of a person is his mental attitude. He is not concerned what happens with Dalits. You see what business it's going on. It's going on with Tata. It is going on with the big businessman. But the effect which has to come on a common man, it's not coming. Now there is another mosque which is going to be raised in Gyanpi state. And they have said you never know. After 1 year, they even erased the Taj Mahal because one of the BJP leader has said that under the Taj Mahal there's a remains of a mandir also. So this is it's not the attitude of Modi only. The whole BJP and RSS leadership. Now you see he's got 4 Hindu priests which are his which are his advisor on the religious communities. Does he have any Muslim priest for his advisor? And as very rightly said, then Muslims are not united themselves. If you happen to be on a talk show in India and there's a Muslim, he will ask you, you please keep quiet. We can handle our issue ourselves. So Muslims are divided. That's why there's another coalition which has been formed against Narendra Modi by the name of India, where all the parties
of course, opposition's coalition against, of course.
So, but they are not very effective. And you see where is the Congress? Congress is only there in South and East India. And Congress is there in a state which is Telangana. But they do not have that power. They do not have that because the whole of the Indian philosophy today is surrounded against the Hindutva, Hindu nationalism, which is based on the RSS initial philosophy. When Hedgehower wrote the book, on the preface he read that all the people in the India will have to be Hindu.
Right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Brigadier retired Ghaznafer Ali, for joining us in today's program. So, Dr. Tugral, when we talk about, of course, potential re-election of Modi, at the same time, we see a lot of issues within India not being addressed, like unemployment, climate change. During COVID, we witnessed a massive crisis within India, but still people are voting, and the alliances like India, like Brigadier Sahab also mentioned about, are not getting attention of the masses. Can you tell us about the reasons of those?
Economy. You see, India has a good economy. It is one of the biggest economies of the world. The World Bank has said that it is going to, in the next year, they are going to have a growth rate of 6%, whereas Pakistan may have a growth rate of 2.1% or something like that. It's like George Bush the first said, it's the economy, stupid. Sorry, I did not mean you, but that's what he told the electorate. It's the economy, the larger economy, and there is a growing Indian middle class. Although yes, I agree, there are very, very rich people. The Indians now constitute a major chunk of the billionaires in the world, but still there is a very large middle class who can buy cars, who can buy fridges, who can buy air conditioners.
Right.
So it's not like that people are against Modi, and the farmers might be protesting, but the Sikhs will again vote for him. You see, and this is nothing new. This farmers committing suicide has been happening before Modi also, because of the wrong policies of the central government. But it's not like that they will not vote for Modi. Even Muslims are going to vote for him. I'm not saying across the board, but they are also going to vote for him because he is providing them stable leadership. He is
continuity of the policies.
Continuity of the
those policies remain questionable.
Yeah, so the first thing, if I was anybody, would I ever make a person the leader of the country if he has killed or assassinated the father of my nation? They have done it.
Right. So this remains questionable. The 22-year-long political career of Modi remains questionable. Unfortunately, we are short of time. Lastly, Dr. Jaspal, your brief comment on all the situation, of course, Modi's questionable tactics and upcoming elections.
I think that one has to admit it that Prime Minister Modi's political strategy is very successful. And by virtue of that, again, one expects that he will be going to win a 2024 election. his party is going to win and with a big majority. But at the same time, we cannot ignore that within these 2 months, the way they will be going to use extremist narrative, hatred narrative, that will be going to have a further impact on the minorities in India. And at the same time, Pakistanis cannot ignore the false flag, because in order to muster this support, they can use the surgical strike mantra or hot pursuit mantra, or they can actually conduct it. So we have to be very careful about and looking the Delhi or the Prime Minister Modi, how he is going to, you can sustain his popularity among the ultra nationalist or Hindutva forces.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Zafar Nawaz Jaspal, for joining us in today's program. Thank you very much, Dr. Tughril Jameen, for your valuable input and joining us in today's program. Of course, the end game for BJP's government is to change the Constitution of India and transform India into a Hindu nation where the rights of minorities and, of course, Muslims, Christians are not served and they are treated as second citizens. That's all from Game Changer tonight. Take care. Allah Hafiz.